Hi, Elizabeth Sherman here. Today is June 21st, 2022, and I am at the Frontenac Museum about to do an interview with Claire Morehouse, and she'll be talking about her memories of Union Springs and Farley's Point. We are in the Native American and Lake room. As when asked, she said this was her favorite room. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Claire Morehouse.
I'm Claire Morehouse, and I live in Aurora. I was born in Auburn, and have been a member of the Farley's Point community since my first summer on Earth. So I'm one of the longest residents there. I'm not the longest, but I'm one of them. And so I'll be happy to talk with you about Farley's and what I remember about Union Springs. And my great-grandparents, the Chappells, Jenny and Russell Chappell, had a farm across from the towpath, the other side of Cayuga.
It's great to hear you talk about
Thank you.
Family, and I've always loved people's stories and local history and things like that. So it's just I'm excited to be talking to you today. So you said that you visited Farley's Point a lot, and so are there any stories that you remember or favorite memories?
Farley's is amazing because generations follow each other on the point. My children grew up with my friends' children. My grandchildren are growing up with their grandchildren. It's an amazing web of friendships and real support. There's no question but what you're very involved with each other. And this has been exciting always. And we really took it for granted. We take for granted the freedom that children have there. You learn the lake. You learn that the lake, even though you may love it, it will kill you. Yeah. And I can hear my mother saying, just always stay with your boat. You'll wash in somewhere and we'll come and get you. But don't leave your boat. And that happened to me not too many years ago. I had waxed my sunfish, and I was so pleased with it, and I was out in the middle of the lake, and I slid right off. I'd waxed it so well, and I couldn't right it. And so I climbed up on its bottom, and I waited, and certainly a man came along before very long and asked if I'd like some help, and I said, I would. And we got it right side up, but it was still full of water, so I couldn't sail it. So he towed me back quite a long way to Farley's Cove, and I tossed the rope away and waved, and I have no idea who Galahad was, but he came. And I kept thinking of my mom saying, just stay with your boat, you'll be okay.
Wow, that's quite a story.
We grew up knowing that the Indians had lived there. We didn't know that much about them, and I've just learned a lot more in this last year when I've been working on this book. But we would find arrowheads periodically, and John Bouck lived there year-round, and he had a wonderful collection of artifacts, and he taught me about middens. I didn't know the word middens. Do you know the word middens?
No.
Okay. It's very black, greasy soil. And it's black and greasy because there were so many fires that cooked so much meat in that area.
Wow.
It's very rich soil, and he had his garden down in the middens, and there's still a wonderful garden in the middens at Farley's. I think that soil must get played out pretty soon, but it's still producing good things.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear that it's, how much
we found pottery shards, and some of them were very, very primitive. Those would be the older ones, and the more recent ones were beautifully decorated. I've got a few of those.
So are there any special keepsakes or heirlooms, books or photos or memorabilia that you have from visiting or from Farley's Point or anything?
Oh yeah, I have a nice collection of things I've found down there, which I'm really not about to part with. And I have decoys. I have a house full of decoys, but they didn't all come from Farley's, but they're all part of the lake life. My husband, well, I married Dave Morehouse, and his family had built boats on the lake he was the third generation. I just painted the water line on our boat yesterday. It's ready to go in the water. That boat is a 1958. And wooden boats have a life of about 20 years, so our boat is well beyond its normal lifespan. But his family hunted a lot, and they had a raft of decoys, about 250. And a new son-in-law borrowed them and went hunting, and left at the end of the day. They turned their boats over and they left the decoys under the boats. And the next morning when he went back, there were no decoys. Somebody had stolen all of them. And once in a while, I keep looking because they all have a mark, a chiseled M on the bottom. And I keep looking for them, and I have found 3 from that stash of stolen birds. One of them was for sale up on the St. Lawrence, and they wanted $150 for it. I would have paid it, except David was with me, and he refused to pay $150 for something that was supposed to be his.
Yeah, that,
wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
So that one got away from me. But that's not Farley's, but it's part of Cuba Lake.
Yeah.
We learned to sail. I learned to sail on a Lightning. I had a Lightning. I sold it just a few years back because I didn't think anybody'd be able to sail it. Nobody is interested in sailing at the moment. They paddleboard.
Yeah.
So we have paddle boards now, and we have still some sunfish that pretty much rest on the beach all summer long. But the current thing is paddle boards.
Yeah.
Do you paddleboard?
When I was a kid, my dad and I we took a lot of trips where we would go camping, and we would go to Darien Lake, and we'd use the paddle boards there, or some place like that, or at a campground. So, I have that memory, but I don't have any actual paddle boards. But
they're fun.
Yeah. And I did go, I went to Camp Ayahuasca, and I did go sailing out there. I never, actually,
sailed it?
Never actually sailed it. I rode it.
That's okay. If you're crew on a boat, you're working.
Yeah.
You can't just relax on it.
No. What memories do you have of downtown Indian Springs?
When I was a little girl?
Yeah, when you were a little girl.
Earl Turney had the red and white, and he had a cheese wheel. And you could lift the lid and cut off a little piece of cheese and taste it. That was wonderful. And he would take my mother aside and say, "Now, Lenora, this is a particularly good one." And so she would go and buy a half a pound, or depending on what she wanted. It was a wedge of cheese that came in a piece of tissue paper. And we always appreciated. He had wonderful cheese, and a lot of it was made here in Union Springs. And then, so that was good. But best of all was the drugstore, where they had an ice cream fountain. And one of the Bacchus girls was usually the soda jerk behind, and she was beautiful. And she had very strong arms, because scooping ice cream summer after summer after summer does wonders for you if you want to develop good arms. She had them. I thought she was very special. But most special of all was when I would go in with my parents, and we would sit in a booth and have either a sundae or a soda. And there were 4 men. I always hoped they would come in, because they would squeeze themselves, and they were enormous, squeeze themselves into a booth that was comfortable for me and my parents. And they would order banana splits, which were, I thought, the biggest things I'd ever seen as far as ice cream goes. And they just had such a good time, and I marveled at their size and the size of their wonderful treats that they were having. But to go there the place smelled wonderful. It was Doremus's, and it had a special scent that only that place had. And the door squeaked in a special way. I heard one door squeak like that since I've grown up. And I swung around to see where it was, and it was just an ordinary door. It was not the door. Too bad. Mm-hmm.
It's funny how, certain noises can bring back memories that you wouldn't, or even smells too.
Even smells and sounds, that you think are long gone, and they're right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People were always awfully nice in Union Springs. And Dad used to drive past the school, and he'd say this so many times. He'd say, look at that school. It is such a beautiful one. You can tell the people here are proud of their school and really value education. And I have thought of that so often since I've been part of that educational system.
Yes.
And I have always been so proud to be part of it.
So have I. I've loved just going to school in Union Springs.
Yeah. And I've often thought when I graduated from Cornell, if you'd told me that I would be happy teaching 6th grade science in a little bitty country school, I would have thought, these people are crazy. And I have delighted in it. Mm-hmm. We had such fun.
We did. I remember.
We did have fun.
One of your students back in the day, but
all those wonderful microscopes and bridges, and we so rarely broke any of that glassware.
Yeah.
It was like once every 3 years we'd drop a beaker. Somebody would. Once it was me.
Yeah. No, my mom, every time we even drive by, she always remarks at how beautiful the school is.
It is.
And she, I know she has lots of fun memories, just as I do.
She went to school here too?
She went to school in Springs, just like I did.
We used to go diving for the Frontenac. Now, I did not go in the water because I don't like wrecks. I don't like things on the bottom. So I would go down. My husband knew where it was. Of course, he knew everything about the lake. And the boys loved it. And so they would dive off the boat and come up with some of the things that are here today, actually. I got tired of having them all in the backyard, so we donated quite a bit to the museum. I don't know whether you got tired of it too, but some of these pieces look quite familiar. And that used to be something we liked to do a few times each summer. And it got so that we found less and less and less. But I have a few treasures in the basement, and it's nice to have a few bits of the Frontenac.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a little girl, because we would go out after supper on the lake. We had a boat that had a 7.5 horsepower motor on it. And we would drive down or ride down and look at the Frontenac. And there was all this metal. Maybe this is where I got afraid of things in the water. Because the wreck was enormous. And it was just metal. It was just metal framing. And during World War II, they had taken a lot of it away during World War I to recycle the metal. But World War II, they had taken more. But this was during World War II, the end of World War II, that we would go down there and see that stuff standing up in the... It was daunting. Now, I mean, you can't even find a nail now, but maybe you could. I haven't looked recently.
No, I also have kind of a thing with wrecks. I don't know. It's just I don't know. Things that happen in the water, just don't know. Very scary. I don't know. But I do know that my dad and I, we always, in the summertime, we always like going kayaking on the lake. So I have memories from that, and that's always was fun. But I still get scared sometimes when there's no rough waves, and I think we're gonna tip. But it's just. But I know I always had fun, so.
Just stay with your boat.
Just stay with the boat, yes. Yep. Stay with the boat. So are there any kind of special family traditions that your family has?
Family traditions?
Yeah.
We have one that has evolved. We did a lot when I was little, but we've kept it, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it's nice that it gets bigger and bigger. We have family night suppers. Sunday night suppers. And everybody brings something, and our usual one is about 13, and we've gotten up to over 30. And that's family and some friends and whoever happens to be around. But those we missed so much during the COVID time.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't do that.
No.
And there was 2 years ago, the kids played at Farley's the way they always had played, but nobody went into any other cottage. Everything had to be outdoors. And fortunately, we got through the time with nobody getting sick.
Yeah.
But that was at the time that we really didn't know yet how it was transmitted.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the summer that we were all very careful.
Yeah.
Very, very careful. So we missed our traditional Sunday night suppers.
Yeah. When I was little, I remember that my family also used to do Sunday suppers. We don't do them so much anymore, but I know, well, normally on every Sunday we'll go up to my grandparents and we'll, play cards or, have some food together. So
And have fun.
So yeah, we do that. But I just remember it'd always be macaroni is our Sunday supper. My grandma would always make her father's, macaroni. It's always very good. That's one thing. I just like, hearing about other people's traditions as well with their families.
It's fun to see. And these traditions are all summer because in the winter we had to go back to the city and when I honestly look back at my growing up, it's all Farley's. I went to school in Auburn and I remember school stuff, but the real growing up was, oh dear, we did all kinds of things that probably it's a good thing our parents didn't know about them too. But I'm not going to share those with you.
Little family secret.
Well, they aren't even family secrets.
Well, yeah,
but I share those secrets with a few special Farley's friends.
Yeah.
I did go to the island. My friend Bobby Hood, who was a girl, we grew up together. We each had, when we were 13, an old Faybowen boat. Those things were heavy as could be. They had belonged to our grandfathers. And our grandfathers had undoubtedly been very proud of them, but they were big, hulky boats. And we had 7.5 horsepower motors on the back of them, which meant you didn't go very fast. And Bobby and I had boundaries. We could go out and run around on the lake all we wanted in our old boats, but we could go between McIntosh Point and the island. And we discovered Richie was digging on the island. It was 1953. And that was the last dig that ever took place on the island, because after that it became wrong. They did not think of it as wrong at that time to open up a grave. Fortunately, we never opened up a grave when I was there, but I was always half hopeful and half afraid. I had very mixed feelings about that. But Bobby and I, whenever it was calm enough, would go to the island and beach our boats, and there wasn't as much poison ivy on the island as there is now. And we would sit around the edge of these pits, and they were mostly students who were doing this work, but they were under Richie's supervision. He wasn't there most of the time. And they would toss out deer teeth. They gave us so many deer teeth that we got tired of them and would say, no, thank you. But they would find artifacts, and they talked to us about what they were finding. We never found anything when we were there that was terribly spectacular. No pipes, no combs, none of those beautiful things. Although David, my husband, said he used to dive as a kid off boats near the island. They were diving for pipe stems and pieces of pipes, and they found several of them. They were trade items, and the clay pipes, maybe you've got one here, they're short, and very white clay, so they would have shown up nicely on the bottom of the lake. But those, I really think that my interest in the original inhabitants here stems from finding a few things as a child on the island and the experiences that we had that summer, because we were down there a lot.
Yeah.
And it was a good trip. It was the end of our boundary, and I don't know what our parents thought they were going to do if we got in trouble out there, but they wanted to know about it, so that was the way it worked. But I look at these cases and I think, yeah, I might have been there when these different things were
Here.
Have you got a pipe?
Yes.
Now, yeah, these are exactly what he was saying. Now, this would have been a piece of the stem. You see that? And this is the bowl. And these, if I were really knowledgeable, I would be able to tell you it's got a mark on it, whether this was Dutch or whether it was English. And these two pieces don't necessarily, they didn't go together. These are parts of two different pipes. But isn't that interesting? I mean, this is fascinating.
No, it is. It's very interesting.
There they are. Be careful. So who knows what else is out there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My mom loves history, just learning about different things. And, just loves going to museums. And, just passed it down to me. I don't know, there's something about, people's past and how they've lived that I just think is...
It's interesting. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And it can get away.
Yeah.
So you're smart to be doing this work, and I commend you for it. This is good. And one thing about history, whether it's good or whether it's bad, you know how it turned out.
Yeah.
The houses in Union Springs, I think, they've been resurrected. I remember a lot of them as a little girl looked pretty tired. And now I love to drive up through the back streets and see all these little Carpenter Gothics. And you want to look for doorways, because federal doorways are rather ornate. They have the sky, the lights either side, the side lights, and sometimes transom lights. And the house may have changed a whole lot, but if you see that old federal doorway, that's an old house. Are we about done, do you think?
Yeah.
For this time?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun hearing about your stories.
Do you know that somewhere in the background I saw here the old ferry boat? Where is it? It's right... Where is it? Oh, right over there.
Yes.
Okay, did you know that was a horse ferry?
No.
It was. It was a horse. They could sail it, or if there was no wind, a horse was on a treadmill, and that was the engine of the ferry.
No. Wow.
Which is why it has that back deck that comes down. That's how the horse got on. Don't you suppose that horse was real happy to go on there?
She was very angry. Why do I have to do this again?
Again.